Day 9 will dawn with us heading through the inside passage towards Skagway. Skagway is where many thousands of people came during the gold rush as a jumping off point to the Yukon. Broadway, the main street of Skagway, looks much as it did during the gold rush in the 1890s and is kept as a national park. The helicopters are getting ready to take people up onto the glaciers, and there some of them go. Skagway is a small town hemmed in by mountains and the water. This is the route the White Pass train will follow later. But first we're going to explore downtown Skagway as the new gold rush happens. The name comes from a Tlingit word, skagu, which means where the north wind blows, and it is extremely windy here. Broadway looks almost identical to what it did in the 1890s and is a historical park. Let's look around a little. For over 100 years, the Red Onion Saloon has served up various types of entertainment for the visitors who come through Skagway. The town still has its historical boardwalks, and it only has about 850 residents, even though it has dozens of high-end jewelry stores, found only here and in the Caribbean. Cruise ship traps. I really like these acrylics of the humpback whales. On the way back to the ship, we see some bald eagles feeding out on the White River. A new gold rush has started in this 850-person town. Every day during the cruise season, 4 to 5 cruise ships dock here with 8,000 to 10,000 people. This time, though, instead of taking the gold away, they're bringing it in. In 1896, the country was in the midst of a Great Depression. Things were the worst they'd ever been. But then, up on the Klondike River in Yukon, something happened. Gold was discovered. The news of the gold flashed around the Yukon territory, but because winter was setting in, nobody knew about the gold finds anywhere else. Then the steamer Portland arrived in Seattle with 68 men carrying over a half a ton of gold, and the news was out. Thousands of people met them at the dock, and the news was flashed around the country. Thousands of people were now on the move. The main problem was the Yukon Territory was difficult to get to. You could follow the all-land routes out of Edmonton, but that took 2.5 years and arrived after the gold rush was over. Or you could leave from Seattle by the water routes. The latter was how most people decided to travel. Some, who were fairly rich, went the all-water route up to Nome and then up the Yukon River to Dawson. Most chose to take boats to Skagway and Dyea and go the rest of the way on land. These are the routes that we'll be looking at now. At Dyea, you would find the Chilkoot Pass, very steep, but also shorter, and at the Golden Staircase, almost straight up and down near the Canadian border. At Skagway, you would find the White Pass, less steep, but also longer. Whichever one you chose to take, you landed up at Lake Bennett, the headwaters of the Yukon River. Dyea was a boom town that is now a ghost town. At the base of the Golden Staircase was a camp as people walked up and down the staircase. If you got out of line, you may not get back in for 10 hours or more, and at the top you had to pass Canadian customs. The Canadians were worried about people getting up here and starving and them having to take care of them, so they required you to bring almost a ton of goods in through customs or you weren't allowed into the country. This meant many had to make 30 or more loads up through there. The Chilkoot Pass was too steep to use pack animals. The other option was through Skagway, which became a boom town very fast. This is a picture of Main Street in August of 1897, and 6 months later it looked like this. 2 years later, this is what downtown looked like, and the Red Onion was offering whatever entertainment you might like. For most people, Skagway was just a jumping off place to head up the White Pass, also known as the Dead Horse Pass because so many horses died going. Then whichever way you chose to go, you end up at a huge tent city at Lake Bennett where you build a boat and wait for the ice out when you can float down the Yukon River to Dawson City. Most arrived in Dawson City a year after the gold had been found, and it became a boom town. Some called it the Paris of the North. Once you arrive, you need to settle in with all that equipment somewhere and then start looking for gold. Most of the early finds were panning, but most of those had been found within a few months, and so those coming late had to find some other way. They started what is called hard pan mining, digging down below the frost layer to the bedrock and then digging along it, digging up the rocks, bringing them up, crushing them, and then running them through sluices of various kinds to wash out the rock. This was hard work, and usually a whole group mined a particular claim. Over 100,000 people left for the Klondike. About 40,000 reached it, 20,000 staked claims, and only about 300 became rich in any way from the gold. Many more became rich taking the gold from the miners who found it originally. In 1898, it was decided they needed a railroad going to the Yukon Territory, so they began construction, but it was never finished before the gold rush was over. We're going to be following that rail now. So let's get on board, give the conductor our tickets, and away we go. The White Pass and Yukon Railroad currently has 22 locomotives, steam and diesel, and 69 vintage passenger cars that they use.
Inside and seated for this first portion of our tour. After I get the okay from my conductor, once we're safely of our own board magazine. If not, or if you just like to have an extra one, they're usually located.
As we head out of town, we pass a camping area, maybe an area where people live that are semi-permanent residents during the tourist season. Along the way, many of the pictures will be foggy since I'm inside and their windows are fogging up. On the way back, I'll stand outside on the platform and the pictures will be better.
Well, currently in the front of our train. Now, George Brackett was the former mayor of Minneapolis.
This is a road they built to try and charge the miners to get into the Yukon. Didn't work too well. They revolted against paying where they had walked for free before. Down there's the rail we were on. That's how twisty and curvy it is, and there's a train following us. Now we enter mountain goat territory, and we start looking for the mountain goats up on the mountains where they live. Do you see the two here? There's one laying down and one standing. You'll probably see these better. I was outside when this picture was taken. This is the old bridge and tunnel into Canada, but we'll be taking the new one, which are much better constructed.
You'll see a sign down there reading Trail of...
Down below us is the trail the miners would have walked on in 1898. And then we cross into Canada, and there is the Northwest Mounted Police Headquarters. We will not be getting off the train here though. We will sit and look at the scenery as they switch the train engine from one end of the train to the other end as we get ready to head back down. I now move out on the platform to take pictures in the clear without any windows for the rest of the trip. And here we pass back into the United States. We'll be down there soon. That's the train in front of us, and there's one behind us also. Suddenly the train starts squeaking its brakes, and I look around, and there in front of us is a grizzly bear which disappears down into the woods. And then we pass by the old Skagway Cemetery on the way back to Skagway. At the boat I stopped for a few minutes to watch the Arctic terns fishing in the White River. And over there the helicopters are returning at the end of the day from the glaciers, and this ends our day at Skagway.
The gold rush was really tough times around here. Some of my best friends didn't make it, and most of us didn't find any gold at all. But it was a great adventure, and I am glad that you decided to trace our route, even if it was in the comfort of a train. Well, at least you came, and you are now a part of the second gold rush up here. We came looking for gold to take home, and you came bringing gold to leave here. I am not sure which of us was smarter. Well, have a good night's sleep.